GM, everyone. Ray Buckton here, your MC for the RWA Pod, back again for another phenomenal deep dive, this time on Jade City, one of the participating pod projects. I'm joined here by Will. Will, how are we doing today?
Yeah, good. Great, real honor to be on the show.
Absolutely, man. The pleasure is all ours, and we're super stoked to be double clicking on Jade, which is something that I think a lot of folk in the Western side of the world maybe have heard of. Has nothing to do with jaded. In fact, you won't be jaded if you find jade in your backyard. Definitely a very nice mineral that Will is going to kind of take us down the rabbit hole on, and not just take us down the rabbit hole, but explain to us why bringing jade on chain makes a lot of sense. So let's go ahead and just start with the fundamentals. Will, can you help our audience better understand the jade market? What makes jade such a compelling investment opportunity, and how big is this global jade market that we're talking about?
Yeah, it's Jade's an odd one because if you talk to the average person who's not from China or not from Vietnam or something like that, like they might not even know what jade is, or they'll know what it is. I say it's some kind of green stone possibly, but believe it or not, after diamonds, jade is the second most traded gemstone in the world. So that's kind of insane. Or in other words, if you took the entire ruby market, sapphire market, emerald market, which are the other three big gemstones, and added those markets together and then multiplied them by about 3, that would still be smaller than the jade market. So
That is
it's
significant.
a whopper, but it's very focused in one country. It's a very ancient market. There are 2 types of jade. One's called jadeite, one's called nephrite. The important one for us is jadeite. That's the big one. And up until very recently, 95+% of that, maybe even more, has come out of Burma or Myanmar, depending on what you call it. And that supply has begun to run out. Prices have been going up almost consistently for like 10 years. It's considered in China in the same way that we might, in the same way that we might use gold as a store of value asset or Bitcoin. They will use, well, they're not meant to use Bitcoin, but some of them do. They they use gold, but they also use jade. That's like their other store of value asset. So yeah, it's pretty big. It's very hard to estimate how big the market is because not all of it is, you could say, official, but it's estimated to be around $50 billion a year, and most of that being in China. So it's insane. And when you go to China, if you go to the areas and the markets, you see how big it is. When you go into a store that's 5 times bigger than a giant supermarket, and it's 5 stories high, and it's only selling jade, and then there's like 5 of them on the block, you're just like, okay, people are into this stuff.
No, absolutely. I mean, we have 5 Walmarts stacked on top of each other that are Jade exclusive. That's a market validation right there, man.
Right,
100%.
that's the kind of all you need to see. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, with Jade being, I guess you can call it like an esoteric market, right? With primary players, you're saying China, super majoritively, Vietnam, Myanmar, and then the supply side of the equation. What kind of market inefficiencies have you identified, in your time building Jade City and beyond, that the traditional supply chain faces, and kind of what you can do with tokenization to help to remedy some of those issues?
Yeah, well, there's several things here. One is even though it's a big market, it's quite closed. I mean, if let's say I didn't happen to be partnered up with a jade mine in Central Asia in Kazakhstan, but that I was just looking to go and get some jade from Myanmar because I wanted to make something out of jade, it'd be really hard. Like, really, it's a hard place to go to. You're not allowed even into the areas where they produce the jade because right now they've got a civil war going on, but even before that, you weren't allowed into those areas. I believe, I'm not sure if it's still the case, but used to be sanctions from the US on bringing that Myanmar jade into the States. So, for Americans, for example, although the jade market's smaller in America, it is actually growing like really rapidly. I mean, it's doubled in the last 12 months, I think. They can't buy the raw material. They can buy the finished product. So you got all kinds of issues. And then it's very opaque the way the market works. There's a lot of smuggling, a lot of corruption. It's not ethically mined. So what we really first is we started with a good mine, a good professional mine, which has a lot of jade. That's like a key thing, right? Blockchain can't solve that issue. But then it's that whole thing of bringing the jade to market, making it very transparent, and allowing anybody from around the world through tokenization to get in on the value chain, because it's an insanely good value chain, but it's inaccessible to everybody, right? And we're basically opening that up. So
Gotcha.
that's one way where you could say we're adding adding efficiency. And then the ability, of course, to trade it and to hold it without getting the physical thing and shipping it around the world, all the rest of it. But that brings efficiency to any physical product that you put on the blockchain. Is just the fact that the physical thing doesn't actually have to travel to your house or to your office or to your warehouse or whatever.
Absolutely. I know that's definitely doubly so for minerals because I like to joke with commodity tokenization, right? I'm like, hey, rocks rock, but rocks they're heavy, man. I mean, you got to move them around. They're kind of hard to take physical delivery of unless you have a very clear economic use case
Yeah, no, they
for doing
sure are.
so.
I mean, I used to be a coal miner, so I definitely know rock is heavy.
100%. No, absolutely. I'm the oldest son of my family, so I was my dad's gopher. Did a lot of moving heavy stuff around. He's a stonemason, as a hobby. So rocks are indeed heavy for sure. And so not having to take physical delivery, we love that. But you mentioned something that's really interesting. You mentioned Kazakhstan, which for those who maybe are listening for the first time, maybe coming out of left field, they're trying to wrap their head around Vietnam, Myanmar, Southeast Asia. China is the main market. Can you walk us through Jade City's unique positioning and then how you guys came about having access to the world's largest proven jade reserve? That's a pretty significant story.
Yeah, it is a significant story, and it's an odd one. So I'm from 18 years old, I started working on mines. I worked on gold mines. I ended up owning coal mines and built those. So I built 6 mines over a period of about 13 years, which is a lot. Like a lot of people in the industry, they retire, they haven't built one. Like it's very rare that somebody, but I was just right place, right time. And I was prepared to go and live in some crappy places where nobody else was prepared to go. So I got the opportunity. So mining is in my blood. That's what I know. And the way this opportunity came about is after I left the mining industry, I sold out. I got into the blockchain world, and I am still very involved in the education side on the blockchain world. And a friend of mine or somebody I used to work with in the mining industry called me up in 2022 and said, "Oh, hey, Will, are you still doing anything in mining? I've got this jade mine in Kazakhstan." My initial reaction was like, "No way, I'm not going back. I'm not going back to Central Asia. I'm not going back to mining. Anything to do with it. I got blockchain now. I could do it from my house." And then, yeah, they sent me the geological reports, which I'm an absolute, sucker for. And I started reading about it, and I was like, "Oh wow, you've literally got the biggest jade mine in the world." It's not just the biggest; it's like orders of magnitude bigger than the next one. And I was like, "Oh my god!" And it's sticking right out of the ground, and it's really easy to get to. And then I started thinking, "Oh, I could combine blockchain with this," and it was people were just starting to talk about real world assets. Then RWA, I was like, oh, "Damn, I'm back in it."
Caught the bug. You caught the tokenization bug at that point.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, and like, of course, I'm like super happy I did it. But at the time, I was thinking, "Oh, I'm going back to that old chapter in my life," But I can't. Yeah, best decision I've ever made, and here we are.
I love it. So that kind of, brings you to kind of my next point. You guys have taken a decidedly different approach than a lot of RWA projects, right? You have this physical asset. Now, albeit it's heavy, but it's there. And as you mentioned, it's the largest proven reserve by orders of magnitude, let's say. So now you're building that tokenization layer kind of on top of that physical asset. Can you tell us about the vertical integration strategy? Because one thing about capital markets is they can be a little segmented, but I know when you and I were speaking, you talked about the whole value chain of Jade. Can you talk us a little bit about how Jade City factors into that?
So yeah, so just to be totally to clear is we don't own the mine, but what we did is the mine needed finance to get into production. And what's very common in the mining industry, I mean, you can raise money through equity, you can get money through debt, very uncommon now in the mining industry, or you can get money through what's called advanced offtake, which basically means somebody comes along and says, "Oh yeah, I want jade. I'll buy your jade at a discount, and I'll buy it before you've even mined it." And therefore, the mining company gets that money. Then they can use that money to get the mine in production. It's a very capital intensive and long process. And so the off-taker takes a big risk. And so with our sister company, Jade Vault, we basically did that. We sunk several $1,000,000 into buying jade that didn't exist yet, or wasn't mined yet. It existed in the ground, but wasn't mined yet. So that's what got us this very, very unique position where we have an extremely large supply contract at a very, very beneficial price for us. Okay. So already in the value chain, we're just making value by buying it because you're buying anything you buy at a discount and you can sell it at its actual price, you're making money. So that was the key first thing. But then in terms of the value chain of jade, it's very similar to the value chain of any precious stone, right? You start off with a stone in the ground, you get it out of the ground, then it's got one price. Then you got to get that stone to market. So in our case, it's in Kazakhstan. It's got to move to China. China's the market. They're going to pay you a lot more in China than they're going to pay you to come in Kazakhstan to pick it up. So you add value in that way. It's very basic. And then the next thing you do is you start to process it and you make it into products. Because if somebody buys, a big chunk of jade, and the chunks of jade we get are like big, they're like 5,000 kilos each. So you turn up your 5,000 kilo gemstones. But the thing is, you could sell that to somebody and they might cut into it. And it's all cracked in the middle, and it's gray, and it hasn't got the green, and there's no it could be a rotter, right? And you can cut into it. It could be green, it could be translucent, it could be worth millions of dollars. There's gamification is built into gemstones without blockchain or anything. It's already there, and this is something that we brought into our platform. But if we, the owner of the stone, basically, you could say take that risk or take that step. We cut up the stones. And the more you process it, the more valuable it becomes. If it's a raw stone, it's worth X. You cut it in half and you prove it's okay, it's X times 2. You turn that into, I don't know, slices, slabs, tiles. Then you've got a half finished product. Now you're X times 3. You turn it into a finished product. Now you're X times 4. You got to spend money along the way, of course, but you're generating value in that value chain. And the reason why most people in most businesses don't go all the way up the value chain is because it's too difficult. They don't have the skills in the business or whatever. I mean, there's 1,000 different reasons why people don't do that. It's capital intensive, all this and that. But in our case, it's actually relatively simple. We have the supplier, the mine. We buy it, so we don't have the capital of running the mine. That's not capital intensive for us. We're just buying a product. This is our supply, and then we take it into China. We process it. We subcontract all of that out. We have amazing partners in China. I sold my business into China in 2013. I spent 2 years there. Good networks, and then we're just up the value chain. And then you basically got live streamers. They're like the influencers like we have in the blockchain world. You got live streamers in the Jade world. Some of these the big live streamers, they'll be moving $200,000-$300,000 a day in product. It's insane. It's insane. It's at another scale.
Is this HGTV kind of like live streamers you're talking about? Like, hey, check out this Jade phone case, this Jade handbag, that sort of thing?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. If I was better looking and more charismatic, I could be one.
There we go.
And spoke Chinese.
Oh, there we go. You make the intro, and I have the microphone. It sounds like we got a side business rocking and rolling, Will. I love it, man. I love it. And it sounds like, honestly, given the kind of diversity in, as you mentioned, opening up these stones and seeing, whether it's kind of, as you called it, a rotter, or it's like absolutely gorgeous. Sounds like kind of the world's first loot box, which I know we'll get to in terms of the built-in gamification.
We have it built in exactly that way.
I love it. Very excited to double click on that. But, with that said, I'm sure a lot of folk who are listening are curious as well, in terms of the platform, they're interested in asset tokenization, would love to kind of walk through some of these operational milestones that you've had of bringing Jade on chain, and how this kind of validates the thesis that you have of tokenizing, this precious stone, and how that's actually opening up access to folks. So what kind of milestones have you had in terms of the platform? How far along are you guys?
Yeah, so we built, so fundamentally, we just say the platform works in the following way. You can come onto the platform, you can purchase a Jade-backed bond. Essentially, you can lend money onto the platform, and it's collateralized by Jade that's already mined. Okay, that's what a bond is, right? It's a fancy word for lending money that's collateralized in some form. So people come in, let's say you were to come on the platform, you were to put $100 in, you were to buy $100 worth of bonds. You start earning Jade. You earn an APY, but you lend in stable coins, but you earn in Jade. So with your $100, let's say your APY, we'd aim for about 20%. And let's just say we did it for 12 months. In fact, it'll be shorter periods. Over that 12 months, at the end of the 12 months, you can claim your $100 back. But during the 12 months, you will accumulate the equivalent grams of Jade that are worth $20 at the sort of average market price of the Jade that we have. All right. Now, at that point, let's just say you wait till the end of the year. You've got your $100 back and you got your $20 of Jade. We'll just call the $20 of Jade. I don't know, 4,000 grams. You receive that as the Jade token. Okay. One token being 1 gram. So you've got the Jade token. Now, at this point, you got an option. You can sell your Jade tokens. Maybe you won't get full price for them. I don't know. Maybe they'll give you an APY 15%, but it's still going to be juicy, right? So that's one option you got right there. But the other option that you have is to actually go into the value chain. You'll be able to you'll be able to put your Jade tokens. You can essentially roll the dice with them. You can put them into the equivalent of a Jade loot box and try and see whether you get a rotter or a golden egg. And that's it, by owning specific pieces of Jade. So you go from a generic gram to a specific gram. And so you're basically just replicating what already exists.
I love that.
This process generates profit. It obviously generates enough money to return the funds to the bondholder when they redeem their bond, to pay them their yield, but all the profit that's generated, that's for the platform.
Gotcha. That makes a ton of sense. Now you can see it kind of coming together, the fact that you're allowing users to move along that value chain, right? So you're talking about, oh, well, we'll do almost like a loot box mechanism. It's not something that's been shoehorned in. Users are able to go from the act Jade to the opening it up and seeing what's inside, because they own a specific gram rather than just the general kind of raw supply. So I love that. It makes a lot of sense.
Basically 2 ways in. The bond is more generic. You don't really have to think about it. You don't want to check in every day, and so you just want to bet your bond, you get your Jade, whatever. But the loot box, which you can either buy into with cash, and we will be launching our first Jade loot box very soon. There won't actually just be one stone in it. It'll be a collection of stones. So just imagine this. I give you a box. There's 10 stones in it. They're all quite big. They weigh like a ton each. And you bought into it at base value, right, of what they're worth at base. And that box has got 2 things in it in the chest. It's got some stones and it's got cash, right? The cash has been put in by the community. And then we use that cash to cut those stones and to turn those stones into whatever we can turn them into. And if we hit lucky stones, we'll turn them into jewelry and everybody's going to make insane gains. If they're crappy stones and we have to make them into, I don't know, coasters for your coffee mug, you're still going to make gains, but they're just not going to be as good, right? And that's the fun. So there'll be 2 ways in. There's the more involved one where you're part of this chest of fun, this loot box, and it could be a 6 to 9 month process while you're doing it. You can always trade out of it. You don't have to stay in it, or you can just go the more generic bond route and make a lower return, but you could say with less risk.
Absolutely. And then definitely, the APYs that you mentioned there are indeed juicy, right? I mean, if the bad end is making 15% on your money, that's not too bad. And, I can see it now, looking at walking through Chongqing in a couple of years and just seeing Jade City signs everywhere, since there's that confluence of the gambling meets that kind of cultural component for the stone. So I love that. So this sounds like a really exciting and enticing model. And I'm curious, now that you guys have proven, this works, not just through virtue of the Jade value chain, but mirroring that on chain for retail and digital audience, what's next for Jade City? What are the next like 12 or 24 months look like, let's say, in terms of platform development, accessibility, et cetera?
So the key thing now is Jade City's the platform's not live yet, right? So the key thing now is to get our first product live. And we have built the bond mechanism and all that stuff, and we've actually tested it, with a group of people. But the first thing that will actually go live that people will be able to use will be a loot box. Okay, it'll be a relatively large loot box. We're still deciding, maybe somewhere between $30,000 to $50,000 worth of Jade in it, which we will put in because we already have 500,000 kilos of our own Jade. We will sell spaces in that loot box, so people will be able to buy into the loot box. And essentially, the loot box will raise money into the loot box, and then we'll start working it. We'll start working it through. We'll start cutting up the Jade, and this creates a huge amount of content, a huge amount of intrigue, and hopefully a huge amount of money. It's the other thing that it creates for people. So that's like, in terms of immediate things, launching the first loot box that's like coming very, very, very soon. So that's in the next few weeks. At the same time, we're working towards our TGE. We did our private sale. We've completed that. We will do a public sale. It'll be quite small. As we've learned and gained experience over time, we realized that actually raising lots and lots of money, particularly if you don't necessarily need it, is not a very good idea, because it creates lots and lots of sell pressure on your token. And because in some way, it's been a hard market, and so we've been delayed. But during that delay, our sister company, Jade Vault's been powering on. A lot of the things that we were going to have to pay for, we don't have to pay for anymore. The amount of money we have to raise has been dropping and dropping and dropping. And now, it's just a couple of 100,000 probably left. And that's all we need. And Jade City's live. So we'll be doing that in our public sale. That's coming up. And then, so it's all about, the launch, the initial product, and then expanding that until we generating proper revenue to create the buy and burn pressure. And then it will be about expanding into other stones. And it might not even be stones. We've been approached by all kinds of people Any value chain where you basically start with something that's not very expensive, you put money into it and time, and you end up with something expensive is a good value chain, right? The model fits, right? You can gamify it. I mean, even talking to people the other day about cattle. I mean, you could literally do it with cattle, and there are different things that come out of a cow. I mean, there's mincemeat and there's fillet steak, right? That's gamification right there too. So there's kind of no limit. The model we have is very unique. Not to say that somebody can't obviously copy it, because everything's open source in the blockchain, but it's very unique, and it'll be applied to a lot of different things over time. And whoever's a token holder at Jade City will just benefit as we go along that road.
No, absolutely, and I definitely I see kind of Jade loot boxes being a bit more of a natural fit than a cow loot box. Definitely,
Yeah,
you want to hope that loot box
gotta
is
think about the cow loot box. How are gonna
well, you
make that
want to
work?
hope that loot box is refrigerated, man. If not, you got a half life on that. That's for
You don't
sure.
know what you're getting. Is it a Wagyu cow, or is it like some crappy like mountain cow?
Yeah, no, we don't want dollar store steaks. That's for sure. That's for sure.
Well, that's the bad loot box. That's the whole point of a loot box, isn't it?
Hey, there you go. No, absolutely. So maybe the analogy does carry through. Love that. Yeah, yeah. Out of curiosity, kind of double clicking on kind of the ecosystem. You mentioned the token component. Jade City, as I understand it, does use a dual token system. You have the J token and the JCT token. Can you walk us through in simple terms, kind of how this dual token structure works and why you chose that approach?
Yes, because what essentially the Jade token is the commodity, right? That is just the tokenized version of Jade. Whereas the Jade City token is the tokenized version of the profit that the platform makes. So I just imagine, I don't know, imagine you had a gold mine, right? What does a gold mine make? It makes gold and it makes money, right? So I know we're not a mine, but I'm just sort of saying that to make a point, right? There is a product that you produce, and there is the profit from that product that you produce, right? So the Jade token is the product. Okay, that is it. It's not buying a Jade token and speculating that the price of the Jade token goes up is not a good move. All right, that's not what you do. It is just a commodity, right? That you hold, you trade. It's used for gamification. It's used for these things. The Jade City token is the profit. That's where you want to do your X's as the platform grows. So that's the two things. You might want to go out and buy a Jade token because maybe you want to buy it. You want to get into a loot box, and that's fun, and that will generate yield in that way. But that's a different thing. That's the utility of a Jade token. Whereas, yeah, I think that's probably about as clear as I can make that one.
No, that makes a lot of sense in terms of the one representing the underlying jade, one representing kind of the profit and the activity around the jade. And the ecosystem token is actually now available, as those who are listening may be aware, through the RWA Pod. It's giving everyone investors exposure to a basket of RWA tokens, including the Jade City token. So I'm curious, how do you view the role of community and democratization of access featuring into Jade City in your mission statement? I mean, how important is community surrounding what you're?
I think community, well, in any crypto project, right? Community is incredibly important, because if people don't know what you're doing, nobody's going to buy your bonds, nobody's going to buy your loot boxes, and all these things. So making ourselves, being loud and making ourselves present in the market is absolutely key. What's always a hard balance to strike is you can go through periods of sort of intense marketing, which we've done in the past, and then you can end up neglecting what you're actually trying to achieve in the goal. Or you can go through intense periods of like, I'm actually got to make this thing work. I got to get the jade there. I got to process it. I got to make a profit. And then it's hard, and doing and keeping the marketing going at the same time, it is also hard. I think projects, any project that is doing anything real, I think they struggle with this, because the crypto market being the way it is, you know, people want updates every day, right? They want news every day. Whereas if you look in the more traditional business world, where, most of us don't come from the crypto world, right? We started somewhere else. We used to give our shareholders an update, sending out a letter every 6 months to 1 year, like that. And then it's just like, oh my God, I can't believe they asked a question. But crypto's the opposite of that. It's about being super open. It's about communicating all the time. And I love that. I mean, I think it's fantastic. It's definitely, it's like juggling two balls. It's quite a hard thing. But you need your community. Without your community, you're not gonna get anywhere.
Absolutely, and it's such an interesting delta, right? Where you have these quarterly updates, and folks are like, okay, sounds good, thank you. Versus, you can have someone in Discord or Telegram at 4 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday saying like, hey, I need updates. What's going on? If I don't hear back in 30 minutes, I'm upset. So it's
Yeah.
the difference between ordering a pizza and having quarterly updates and financial reports is night and day. But that's the world in which we find ourselves, and threading that needle is something that's very challenging, and definitely given the nature of Jade, kind of the inherent loot box mechanisms, I think you guys are in a really good position to kind of thread that needle and then lean into those community values, which is really exciting. So I can only imagine like bringing Kazakhstani jade to global markets, largely for the first time. It's really a first of its kind, excuse me, operation. So what unique opportunities has this presented as you bring this to market, and any kind of unique challenges that you've had to navigate when bringing jade from a new jurisdiction into the Chinese market, because it is kind of a black box. It's a bit esoteric for a Western audience. So I could imagine that's been quite an interesting journey.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting when you got a product that where 90 whatever high 90% of it have come from one country forever, which is, as I reiterate, is jadeite, because somebody will then look up jade like nephrite jade and go, oh, it comes from Canada. That's a different material. And Guatemala is the other major player. They got a couple of percent of the market, but they've been around. I mean, they've been mining it for a very long time, even in their ancient civilization. But it's been in the Chinese market for probably 15 years or something like that. And they're still considered the new kids out there. So we turn up and we got a new product. So what firstly has been a challenge is people to believe that that you can actually get it from Kazakhstan. People are like, no, it doesn't come from Kazakhstan. It's impossible. And, that in itself has been a challenge. We've been very, very lucky with our partners in China. I mean, basically the biggest jade brokerage in the world is our partner. So that's good, and and they're also government owned, partly government owned. So we've had the most fantastic support from China, and so where we were struggling in the beginning, once we found the right people and they just saw this insane opportunity because of the size of what we have access to, then we've been pretty well looked after. So that's a challenge, and we're overcoming that now. Of course, it's an everyday thing. We're still overcoming it. Just because one person's supporting you doesn't mean 100 other people are, right? You got to win people over gradually. What's, I would say, very unique about what we have is jade is a material that's traditionally used for jewelry, and then with lower quality jade used for carvings. And it's kind of like a very high value market. We've got huge pieces of it, right? It doesn't come in kilograms, it comes in tons. And it's insane, right? So, we can make a tile floor, we can make architectural stuff out of jade. And we've already started doing this. And that's our USP. It's like basically jade for the home, right? Jade homeware as opposed to just jade on your wrist. Even if your jade's lower quality, if it's your floor, right? That's like a luxury product.
Mhm.
It's pretty kind of insane. I mean, it's more luxury than the most luxury marble that exists in the world if you've got jade tiles, right? Because that's not marble, that's jade. You're literally tiling your floor in gems, which is about the most bling thing that you can do. Well,
That's
that's our USP right there.
That's a wealth statement, that's for sure. When you're walking
Yes,
on
well,
gemstones to get to your bathroom at 2 o'clock in the morning,
yeah,
after getting home, it's just like, oh yeah,
yeah,
I am walking on gemstones. I'm
yeah.
really curious as well, though. As someone who is familiar with marble, you drop something on marble, it's likely not going to ding the marble. Whatever you drop is going to dent. How strong is jade? Because if I do get home at 2 o'clock in the morning and I'm walking across my jade floor, do I want to be heavy footed? Is that something I can do? How does that actually work as like a quality of the gemstone?
It's very hard and it's very strong. I don't want to bore the audience with sort of material science, but there are two ways you can measure material. One is its hardness, which is how easily you can scratch it. And the other one is how tough it is, like what's its tensile strength if you want to crush it or if you want to pull it apart. So on hardness, jade is a 7, marble's a 3.5. So, and it's not a linear scale, it's called the Moore scale. So a 7, I don't know how many times harder a 7 is than a 3.5, but it's like many times harder. So a diamond's a 10, that's many times harder again. So jade's extremely hard. Like basically you could say scratch proof unless somebody's scratching it with diamonds. And then in terms of toughness, it's actually pretty much the toughest stone that there is. I mean, that's one of the reasons why jade became valuable thousands and thousands of years ago. It was partly because the finer stuff was beautiful, but your common jade was used for axe heads, was used for weapons, it was used for for tools, right? And if you're an ancient civilization, and actually this still applies today, if you've got tools and you've got weapons, you can basically build stuff and kill people, which is a way of becoming rich. It's one method. In
Absolutely.
ancient times, that's a method, and in modern
Percent.
times, it's a method, right? So it's a very important material because of its strength. So yes,
Mm.
if you've got something made out of jade, the chance of you breaking it are very, very low indeed.
Gotcha. And hopefully it's becoming less of a popular method as time goes on. But that's the good news is
Wow.
for those listening, crypto millionaires out there want to have a jade floor. You could be as heavy footed as you want from the sounds of
There you
things,
go.
which is excellent. I just had to ask the question when you said, architectural use cases. I'm like, do I have to be very careful in my new jade clad apartment? But it
No,
sounds like
no,
it's actually the
you can
strongest
be.
stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually in a jade factory the other day, and not a jade factory, sorry, a stone factory, where this guy, I mean, it was a big factory. They made stuff they export to, a lot of 5-star hotels in Europe, a lot of stuff going to Italy, that kind of stuff, like really high end stuff, but made in Southeast China. And the guy, I gave him a sheet of jade. Oh, look, I got a bit of jade in my hand, basically like something a bit like this, and he's just scratching it with a nail. He's just like, it won't scratch, it won't scratch, it won't scratch. Look at it, it's amazing, it's wonder material, like this. I'm like, yeah, it is wonderful. Just wait till you put it in your saw and try and cut it up. Then you won't be so happy with me.
There you go. And I guess that's the power of the diamond tipped saw, right? So very expensive to actually cut into the stuff. But that's just another use case and demonstration of like the value of what you're bringing to market. And I think this is, I can only imagine, hope this is very illuminating for Western audiences specifically. If we've had the pleasure of talking before, Will, and I always appreciate your expertise in bringing me down this really fascinating kind of road of this ancient stone. And so I could imagine now, given that folks have been informed about the intrinsic qualities of jade, the fact that it is an inherent loot box, right? It's nature's loot box, we can call it.
It
And then
is.
the returns are quite nice. Honestly, even if you get one that's a dud, you're still coming out in profit. That's exciting. And so for investors who want to get exposure to the Jade market via Jade City, I know you said the platform's not live yet. What's your call to action? What's the best way for folks who are listening today to
The
participate or prepare to?
call to action will be to keep an eye on us. We will be launching on some launch pads fairly soon. So there will be a public sale, and so that's one way to get involved. The other call to action will be the first Jade loot box, and that's really, I'm like most excited about that, because it's so, you could say it's so physical, right? There will be a loot box, there will be a dashboard. On the dashboard it will say, right, we got this many kilos, these are the rocks. There will be it's like the loot box will have its own social media stream, or like feed, right? So you can just track stuff. And there's a where we're warehousing our jade, there's a new saw arriving, which is basically like, those things you see in the supermarket will like slice up a loaf of bread and it's got like 40 knives on it and it just does it all in one go. It's basically one of those for jade boulders. So you can think how fun that's going to be, right? Because we can have a loot box, stick a stone in it, and you're going to have, let's say, 40 slices, right? And you've got 40 windows into what you're sitting on, and you need two or three of those to come up good. Look, something like, yeah, it looks like even like this, like it's good, right? And then you kind of, you're in the money, and that will be the big reveal. You just got to keep your fingers crossed we don't cut into a rotter.
That
So
is
there will be
very
more than one stone in the loot box, and I will make sure the stones that go into the first loot box are good ones.
I love it. That is very exciting. Definitely a lot more exciting than being at Costco and watching the bread get sliced by those
Yeah.
machines. That's for sure. It won't make you as hungry, but definitely will make you a lot more excited and potentially a lot more wealthy, right? So
Yeah.
absolutely love that. A shameless personal question: can Americans participate? Because as an American, there's some mechanics around loot boxes, and generally, I just expect
That is actually that's a very good question, because I actually don't know the answer yet to that. It's been, I know we've done, for example, we have a UK company, which is not Jade City, but our sister company. And certainly, accepting American money is always complicated with that. If you don't have Reg D and you don't have this, the loot box is actually going to be regulated out of Europe. The loot box itself, it'll actually be a security. So it'll be regulated out of Europe. And whether an American can participate or not, I don't know, but I will find out.
So I'm hearing there's hope, and that's totally fine. I'm so used
Yeah.
to hearing ex-US on every product
Yeah.
and working in tokenization. I've gotten
Everybody's
used to the
scared.
heartbreak. Gotten used to the heartbreak, right? It's like being with all the American capital. It's like being the belle at the ball, but ultimately you can't dance because you're kind of shackled with glass slippers. You could say with all this regulation, but
Exactly.
nevertheless, ultimately, I'm very enthusiastic to support. I think what you're doing is phenomenal, and nature's loot box. I think that's a little tagline there.
We might use that. I'll steal it.
Dare we? There may no, absolutely. Hey, it's free to take. Like you said, everything's open source. You said it first, right? So that's
Yeah.
kind of how it is in this digital world. So Will, this has been phenomenal. I'm sure everyone listening, I would hope they're getting very bullish on Jade. Like I said, especially the Western audiences who maybe aren't so familiar with this precious stone. But I'd like to leave with a kind of final thought here. Where do you see Jade City going over the next, let's say, 2, 3, 5 years? Where does the future of tokenized Jade, look like as this whole thing
Oh,
progresses?
I think it's just growth. It's more and more. I mean, look, the market's very big, so for us to grow into the market, we're still going to be tiddlers, right? And we can be huge. Like there's so much room. But where I see Jade City growing is Jade being the first stone, basically another product coming into the market, coming onto the platform, and everything that you bring another product, that's another market, that's more money that goes into the buy and burn, and you just keep stacking. Basically, you just create a model that works. You find a product that works, and you just keep stacking it. And the idea is just to keep applying that buy and burn pressure to the token over an extended period of time. And ultimately, if you just do that for long enough, you'll end up with something really successful.
I love it. No, absolutely. Economic value meets economic scarcity, and that's really kind of the magic sauce. So I'm looking forward to seeing an actual literal Jade City somewhere in China, sponsored by you guys. And then, as you said, as you expand, maybe we could do a coal city down in the North Pole. Give Santa Claus some MO for
Thank
all the
you.
naughty kids out there with Christmas coming around the corner in a couple months. But Will, this has been phenomenal. I definitely urge everyone, to follow Will, follow Jade City, get excited about the loot box. Definitely check out the RWA Pod. Very exciting things happening there, where you can deposit your USDC or qualifying assets to get exposure to not just Jade City, but an entire realm of RWA ecosystem tokens. So very exciting stuff. Well, thank you so much for your time today. Phenomenal conversation.
Cheers, Ray. Thank you very, very much. Thanks for giving me the time and the great questions.
Absolutely. Absolute pleasure. And everyone, we'll see you on the next episode. Trunks up.
Cheers, guys. Take care.